And welcome to the place for offbeat commentary and comedy on today's hot topics. A place to get unique perspectives and opinions. A place where political correctness is checked at the door, but not our manners. A place where common sense prevails in uncommon times. Welcome to Billosophy. And hello, and welcome back to Billosophy. Glad you made it for round number 2. As I mentioned before, we have 4 or 5 episodes already pre-recorded, and they weren't recorded in any particular chronological order. But I decided, since we're entitling this one 2021, the year in review, that I'd kind of put it up there kind of at the top right behind the introduction episode. So once again, thank you for joining us, and without any further ado, let's get into what we just lived through in 2021. All right. So right off the bat, January 6th, there was a group of mostly peaceful protesters that decided that they didn't like the results of the 2020 election and they were going to do something about it. So they stormed Capitol Hill. Not like storming San Juan Hill or Culp's Hill, for you Civil War buffs out there. But they stormed Capitol Hill, armed with, well, still waiting to see what they were armed with. But mostly they were armed with cell phones, so they could take plenty of selfies of themselves while meandering through the highly fortified gates of Congress. You know what? It was a bunch of dumbasses doing what dumbasses do. I'm not going to sit here for 1 second and defend any of their actions. Whether you liked the results of 2020, whether you thought they were fair, whether or not you thought that election was stolen, but this is still America, and don't act that way, idiots. And then, because he made some phone calls, that's what always gets you in trouble. President Trump was impeached for the second time after he was out of office. You get the idea that some people really don't like that guy? And then Joe Biden was inaugurated as the 42nd president of the United States. And everything went downhill after that. Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers won Super Bowl LV. I didn't even crack a math book to see what those Roman numerals even stand for. But it was Tom's 7th Super Bowl title, and he was 43 years old. And what makes it even more impressive is that it was the first Super Bowl he had won without Bill Belichick as his head coach. So that ongoing argument about turtle and egg and chicken or rabbit, I think we got the answer to it. Tommy Boy pulled off a win while Bill Belichick is still in the video room watching the video of next week's opponent that he paid somebody to film illegally. Justice is served. So, guy by the name of George Floyd, a couple years ago, got killed by a cop while being arrested. The jury this year found that cop guilty of murder. But really what the jury did was keep the whole state of Minnesota from being burned down. And so upon the conviction and sentencing of this police officer, all statues of the founding fathers, of leaders like Abraham Lincoln, Teddy Roosevelt, Neil Armstrong, Teddy Kennedy, they were all ordered melted down and recast as new statues of the latest non-living greatest American, George Floyd. Elon Musk, that wacky, crazy scientist out there in California, he decides the world just isn't big enough playground for him, so he decides to go to outer space. And for the first time, he puts a for-profit private company spaceship into orbit. So if you got a few $100 billion sitting around not doing anything, you can invest in that. And if you got a few $100 million sitting around, you can hitch a ride. So it takes this joyride up into space, does a couple quick laps around the parking lot, and comes back down to Earth. After they pull it out of the drink, spray it a few times with a couple hits of Febreze, get the seaweed off the wings, they're ready to rock and roll and do it again. And feel free to fact check me on this, but I'm pretty sure I'm right. I'm pretty sure he did it all with batteries, all electric power. Take that, NASA. And then on a really sad and somber note, the longest war in U.S. history, the Battle of the Goat Ranches in Afghanistan, came to an end, not with a whimper, but with a bang, as some zealot suicide bomber decides that he's going to blow himself up and 13 of our great servicemen and women along with him. We were told from the beginning that this withdrawal was going to be smooth. It was going to be organized. There would be no flashbacks of leaving Saigon back in the 70s. And fortunately for President Biden, since MSNBC and CNN and the rest of them decided not to cover any bad news on President Biden, you didn't see any of those. For those that lost their lives during that chaotic withdrawal, and all those that lost their lives in the 20 plus years in that region, may you rest in peace. And those of you that came back not whole, either in mind, body, or spirit, we just hope this war wasn't in vain either. Also in 2021, vaccines became readily available to anybody that wanted them. And then shortly thereafter, the United States become embattled in the Second Civil War. And we're still waiting on the outcome of that war. Right now, the current Gettysburg battlefield is actually being carried on up in Canada, go figure, where the Freedom Truckers are honking every night and honking everybody off. And as my good buddy Walt Wenger says, keep on trucking. The 2020 Olympic Games, the 32nd Summer Games, were actually held in 2021. So that tells you how screwed up 2020 was as well as 2021. The United States topped the medal list with 113 medals, none of which I can name. Then in November, the Atlanta Braves won the World Series. So that just goes to show that revenge just gets sweeter the longer it takes to enact. You see, earlier in the year, Atlanta Braves and their ball diamond was supposed to host the baseball all-star game. But something that completely out of the realm of baseball, the players had no control over it, the managers had no control of it. Believe it or not, even the owners of the Braves had nothing to do with it. But Major League Baseball decided that they didn't like the way that the voters of Georgia acted, and so they were going to take their ball and go elsewhere. So the state of Georgia enacted some legislation to kind of shore up some of the criticisms that 2020 election was a little bit loosey-goosey. And so they enacted some legislation that far less restrictive than many of the Democratic states. Say like New York, New Jersey, Maryland, Vermont, live free or die, brother, and Biden's home state of Delaware. But don't let facts get in the way of a good storyline. So they shuffle the All-Star game off to Denver, Colorado. Makes total sense. This was supposed to be about racial inequality. So they take it from a city that has 51% African American population to Denver, which, by last count, they're still waiting for their first person of color to show up. The banner's out. It's ready. They're going to welcome them with open arms. That'll show you social justice warriors who's boss. Good job, Major League Baseball. But back to the revenge section. The Braves came back and won it in Atlanta, where Major League Baseball just wasn't quite brave enough to pull the World Series away from. So I said at the beginning of this that after Inauguration Day, things went downhill from there, and boy, did they. Inflation is rampant. A family of 4 has to cast lots every night to decide which 3 get to eat because of food prices. Gas prices are ridiculous. You pretty much have to call your neighborhood banker to get a loan, to apply for a loan before you can fill up your automobile. That is if you have an automobile to drive, because new and used car prices are incredibly high. And if you're actually looking for a pickup truck, good luck finding one. The southern border, whatever part of the wall was built, must have been out of screen door material, because they got people flooding in here like nobody's business. And Let's Go Brandon has become the rallying cry of the nation, even supported by President Biden.
Let's go, Brandon. I agree.
So as we look back on 2021 and look at everything that's happened, I think there is one thing that we can all agree on. At least there were no mean tweets. So thank you for listening. Hit that like button, subscribe if you want to, and ring that bell if you want to know when the next rendition is going to occur. We'll be working on our 2022 forecast episode, so stay tuned for that. And enjoy the rest of your day.